The anniversary party was supposed to feel easy. My parents had rented a small hall, nothing extravagant, just enough to gather relatives, a few neighbors, and people they'd known long enough to expect attendance. There was music playing too softly to matter and conversations layered over each other, in a way that everything feels slightly distant. I stood near the drinks table, watching my mother move from group to group, smiling in a way that looked practiced rather than spontaneous. My sister stayed close to her, orbiting in that familiar way, never quite hosting, never quite a guest. My husband stood beside me, quiet, observant. He had that habit of listening fully before speaking, which, in my family, often translated as absence. "You okay?" he asked, not looking at me, just reaching lightly for my hand. "I'm fine," I said. And at that point I was. It started small the way it always did. A comment here, a suggestion there. My sister mentioning how hard things have been lately. My mother nodding too quickly, adding context no one asked for. My father chiming in with practical concerns, finances, stability, support. All of it threaded together in a way that felt rehearsed. I'd seen this structure before. The slow build toward a conclusion that was never stated directly at first. We moved to a table when dinner was served. My parents sat across from us. My sister took the chair beside my husband, as if it had been assigned to her long before we arrived. No one commented on that. For a while the conversation stayed neutral. Food, weather, someone's recent move. My father told a story he'd told before. And everyone nodded at the right moments. Then my mother shifted. She looked at my husband, then at my sister, then back again. It was subtle but deliberate. "You know," she said, almost lightly, "sometimes people just fit better in different situations." No one responded immediately. Not because it was confusing, but because it wasn't clear yet how far she intended to go. My sister smiled faintly, eyes lowered, like she was already part of the conversation without speaking. My father leaned in slightly. "We're just saying compatibility matters. Long term." I felt it then. Recognition. The direction had finally revealed itself. I kept my hands folded in my lap. Still, controlled. My mother continued, now more direct. "You've always been very independent," she said to me. "You manage on your own. But she glanced at my sister, softening, she needs someone steady. Supportive." The word needs lingered. My sister didn't protest. She didn't laugh it off, she just sat there, letting it settle around her like something deserved. "And your husband?" My father added, nodding toward him. "He's stable, thoughtful. The kind of man who could really provide that." There it was. Not framed as betrayal. Not even a suggestion. Just practicality. I didn't look at my husband right away. I already knew he had understood. Instead, I watched my mother's expression. There was no hesitation in it. No awareness of the line she had crossed. Just certainty. I realized then that to them, this wasn't outrageous. It was logical. That was the part that stayed with me. There was a pause, long enough that it should have corrected itself. But no one moved to soften it. I felt the old instinct rise, the one that smoothed things over, redirected, absorbed. The version of me that laughed lightly and changed the subject. But it didn't fully form this time. Before I could decide what to do with it, my husband spoke. His voice wasn't loud, it didn't cut through the room. It just arrived, steady and clear. "Can I ask something?" My father nodded, almost relieved. "Of course." He rested his hands lightly on the table. Not defensive, not tense. "If we're talking about better matches," he said, "would the neighbor be a better fit for you too?" It took a second. Not because the words were unclear, but because no one expected them to land that directly. My mother's smile froze. My father blinked, the meaning catching up to him in real time. "What?" he said. "The neighbor," my husband repeated calmly. "You get along well, she's attentive, present. By the same logic, wouldn't that make her a better partner for you?" The table went still. Not dramatically. Just completely. My sister shifted in her seat. Her earlier composure thinning at the edges. My mother's eyes moved quickly between us, searching for a way to reposition the moment. "That's not the same," she said too quickly. "Why not?" he asked. There was no aggression in his tone. That was what made it impossible to dismiss. My father straightened. "That's inappropriate." My husband nodded slightly. So is what you just suggested. No one spoke after that. The music in the background felt louder now, filling the space that conversation had abandoned. Somewhere behind us, someone laughed, unaware. At our table. The shift was complete. My mother tried to recover it first. We didn't mean it like that, she said, her voice softer now, less certain. But the structure had already collapsed. The comparison was too clean. Too visible. My sister looked down at her plate, no longer part of something protected. Just present. I realized I was breathing differently. Not faster, just deeper. There was no rush to speak, for once. I didn't feel the need to manage the aftermath. I think we're done here, I said quietly. Not loudly enough to draw attention. Just enough for the table. My husband stood beside me without hesitation. My father didn't stop us. My mother didn't call after us. There was nothing left they could say that wouldn't reinforce what had already been exposed. As we walked out, the room continued behind us. Unchanged on the surface. But something had shifted. Not repaired. Not resolved, just revealed. Outside, the air felt cooler than I expected. I looked at him. You didn't have to do that. He shrugged lightly. They were asking a question. I answered it. I almost smiled victory. It wasn't closure. But it was something I hadn't allowed myself before. A line that stayed where it was drawn. And for the first time, no one tried to move it.